Evening again to some of you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are going to have this wonderful presentation by John Dreslin about Darwinian Woman, the Evolution of Princess Ida. To begin with, let's get everybody set up so that we can best enjoy the performance. I would suggest that you go down to the left-hand corner and mute and stop video, except for John, obviously. And you probably also want to go to the upper right corner and go to speaker view so that you will see only John's screen when he is presenting. And that'll just make it easier. For one thing, you'll see his slides on your whole screen, and that will make it much easier to read them and see what he has for us. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have some questions and answers. We will record this program for the NEGAS YouTube channel. Once that conversation starts to taper off into polite chit chat, as it were, veers away from questions and answers about the program, I will end record, and then we can talk about the weather. So thank you again for coming. The mission of the New England Gilbert and Sullivan Society is to support the appreciation of the works of these two talented men, both together and separately. With venues and performing groups obviously closed down for the last year or so, we have turned to virtual programming and have had some wonderful programs presented so far this year. We will be continuing to do that over the next few months, and even once we are able to have meetings in person, we will continue to do some programming virtually, because it allows people from all over the country and indeed all over the world to join us. And that seems very much in keeping with the mission statement for NEGAS. Our April program is going to be a viewing party of a historic NEGAS production from a meeting a number of years ago. So stay tuned to the NEGAS member Facebook page for details about that. And then in May, we are going to have another Zoom production of a Gilbert play. We're going to do Allow Me to Explain, which is a very short farce, and it's quite entertaining. So if you're interested in participating in that as an actor, get in touch with me. Or if you have ideas for more programs, other programs that we could do in the future. My name is Jacqueline Haney. I am the program chair on the board, and we're always interested in people's ideas. So do get in touch. As I said earlier, I would suggest that you mute yourself and stop your video and go to speaker view, because now I am going to hand the program over to John Dreslin and let him take it from here with Darwinian Woman. Thank you, John.
Right. Okay. Good evening, all. My talk today will be how the poem, The Princess, a medley, became transformed into what is one of my absolute favorite Gilbert and Sullivan works, Princess Ida. My presentation will last for about 50 minutes and will be followed by a question and answer session, so please hold all questions unto them. One other point, when I refer to the opera Princess Ida, a lot of people consider it in 3 acts, acts 1, 2, and 3. However, when I refer to anything in Princess Ida, I will use what Gilbert designated, which is first prologue, then followed by act 1, and then followed by Act Two, Act Two being the concluding act. In my research for this project, I discovered there has been a fair amount of writing on this subject. My principal sources, though, consist of first, the poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, specifically the revised 1850 version. Secondly, the article From Tennyson to Gilbert by David Fiddler, which is available on the Gilbert and Sullivan Archive website. And this features side-by-side comparisons of the actions in the poem and the opera. Third, the book The Princess and Princess Ida by David Trott, which includes the text of the Gilbert stage play The Princess and both the British and American libretti of the opera Princess Ida. I'll be talking more on those differences later. And finally, there is a fairly good Wikipedia entry on the Tennyson poem, The Princess. So let us begin with Alfred Lord Tennyson, who lived 83 years from 1809 until 1892. Tennyson was the poet laureate of Great Britain from 1850 until his death. He married the poet and musician Emily Selwood in 1850, but only after her father considered that he could finally support her in sufficient style. At this point, he was the poet laureate. Among his other famous works are The Charge of the Light Brigade, Crossing the Bar, and Idylls of the King. The Princess, a Medley, is a lengthy serial-comic blank verse narrative in iambic pentameter. These long narrative poems were sort of the rage back those days. A couple that come to mind are Childe Harold's Pilgrimage by Lord Byron and the Song of Hiawatha by Longfellow. If you were to purchase it in hard copy, it runs well over 150 pages, so it's a really long poem. Tennyson first discussed the idea with his future wife in the late 1830s. The first version was published in 1847, the same year as Queen's College London was founded. However, this was not a college in the modern sense, but more a secondary school for girls aged 12 and up. The first true university for women, Girton College, Cambridge, would not open until 1869, 22 years later. The structure of the poem is as follows. In the original version, the plot is related as a storytelling game by 7 undergraduate male students attending a summer picnic. This is based on a feast held by the Mechanics Institute, which took place at Park House near Maidstone in 1842, an event that Tennyson attended. A prologue and conclusion surround 7 lengthy cantos, each told by a different male participant in a tale from mouth to mouth, where each speaker progresses the story from the point their predecessor left off. In the 1850 revision, a love song by the women attendees was inserted at the conclusion of each canto, adding a female perspective to the poem. The first 4 cantos are lighter in tone. The last 3 become more serious and earnest after the women object. I think the structure was what George Walker was getting at in his television version of Princess Ida from 1982, which he sets at a country estate. In this case, young men and women are preparing to act out the story rather than tell it. So let's take a look at a bit of it over the strains of the prelude. What follows is a synopsis of the poem, starting with the prologue. The narrator, possibly meant to be Tennyson, is walking the grounds of Sir Walter Vivian's estate. Sir Walter is pointing out various warrior heroes, including a lady, one that armed her own fair head, and sallying through the gate, had beat her foes with slaughter from her walls. The narrator joins the rest of his companions in a group of girls. He mentions the story of the lady warrior. One of the girls, named Lilia, exclaims, "Oh, I wish that I were some great princess. I would build far off from men a college like a man's, and I would teach them all that men are taught. But I would make it death for any male thing but to peep at us." Thus inspired, the first of the 7 male students begins the tale. Canto 1. The narrator begins in the voice of the prince. Note that Hilarion, Hildebrand, the brothers Gurin and Cynthius are not named in the poem. The latter two are merely referred to as the twins. The prince was betrothed, according to the poem, at 8 years of age to a princess of a neighboring kingdom. He has 2 fast friends, Cyril, described as a gentleman of broken means, his father's fault, and Florian, described as almost half myself. The king sends ambassadors and gifts to the princess's kingdom. He hears back that the maiden has gone to live among her women and would not wed. The king is furious and wishes to send an army to fetch her. Florian confesses that he has a widowed sister, the Lady Psyche, who is close to the princess. The 3 decide to sneak out in defiance of the king's wishes to win over Ida. They present themselves at the court of Gama, a little dry old man, not like a king, who is, however, sympathetic to their cause. He explains that the princess is under the influence of 2 widows, Lady Psyche and Lady Blanche. They feed her theories, maintaining that women was equal to man. Gama has given her a summer palace to found a university and explains they see no men, not even her brother Arak, nor the twins, her brethren. However, he gives them letters to take to her. He hopes of persuading Ida to relent. As they near Ida's palace, they stop at an inn. The innkeeper confesses that Ida has so intimidated him that he keeps away and observes that the land was tilled by women, all the swine were sows. He lends them some women's clothes. They arrive at the palace and are shown in. They are told that of the 2 tutors, Lady Psyche is the prettiest and the best natured, and so they send a message to the princess that 3 ladies of a northern empire pray your highness would enroll them with your own as Lady Psyche's pupil. Canto 2. After spending the night at the palace, the 3 go to meet the princess, who welcomes them. They tell her that they are from the court of her betrothed and how he longs for her. But the princess responds that she has no interest in him and will never wed. She explains the rules of the university. For 3 years, not to write home, leave the university, or speak to any man. The princess's reception hall is decorated with statues of female heroes from classic times. The 3 move on to attend Lady Psyche's class, which centers on the subject of how men have over time oppressed women. After class is dismissed, Psyche recognizes her brother Florian. The 3 explain their presence. She agrees to keep their identity secret if they will depart soon. They are interrupted by Blanche's daughter, Melissa, who has overheard their conversation, but she also promises to keep silent. The canto closes with a lullaby, and I was surprised to recognize the lyrics as Sweet and Low, which my mother used to sing to me in a setting by Joseph Barnby. Indeed, over the years, many of the poems from The Princess have been set to music, including settings by Gustav Holst, Ralph Vaughan Williams, Benjamin Britten, and Frank Bridge. But moving on to Canto 3. The next day, Melissa comes to warn the men that Lady Blanche has seen through their disguise and has duped Melissa into confessing her collusion. She explains that originally Blanche, a widow, was Ida's nursemaid, and after the death of Ida's mother, became her tutor and intimate. Recently, however, Psyche arrived at court, also recently widowed, but being near in age to Ida, became the princess's favorite, displacing Blanche, who maintains that Psyche thieved her theories. Cyril goes to Blanche and explains to her their mission, and promises that if they can contrive to have Ida marry the prince, Blanche will be given a palace in which to rule her own school. The three disguised men ride out with Ida and her ladies for a picnic. She asks if they have come as ambassadors for the prince. The prince tries to convince her that she would be better off marrying, as she, with only fame for a spouse and great deeds for issue, will miss what every woman counts her due: love, children, happiness. She responds, children die, but great deeds cannot die, and goes on once again to expand on how men throughout the ages have kept women down. Ida asks for entertainment at the picnic. One of the maidens sings a melancholy song, Tears, Idle Tears. Here is a verse of it as set by Ralph Vaughan Williams. The prince then sings a love song, "Oh, swallow, swallow, flying south." The princess mocks it and demands another song from his own land. A tipsy Cyril chimes in with a tavern song of Moll and May and strange experiences unmeet for ladies. His female disguise is thus blown, and all the women flee in terror. In horror, Ida falls into the river, but the prince rescues her. Cyril and Psyche escaped separately, but the prince and Florian are captured and brought before Ida. At this point, we are introduced to her enforcers. 8 daughters of the plow, stronger than men, huge women, bloused with health, wind, rain, and labor. Each was like a druid rock. When last our Connecticut Gilbert and Sullivan Society performed Princess Ida, we sent out the call for tall women extras. One of the privileges of being music director and friends of some of the ladies allowed me to have my picture taken with several of them. You notice the smile on my face. Melissa and Blanche are summoned to explain their roles in the cover-up. Blanche complains of her ill treatment by Ida vis-a-vis Psyche. She states that she was actually on her way to expose the men, but Ida's accident happened first. Letters arrive from Gama and the king. Gama is being held hostage, and the king threatens to attack the palace if the prince is not released unharmed. The prince tells of how he has pined for Ida over the years. Meanwhile, the women students are in a state of terror, fearing an imminent attack by the king's army. Ida gives them a pep talk, then turns to the prince saying, You have done well, and like a gentleman and like a prince. You have our thanks for all, and you look well, too, in your women's dress. You saved our life. We owe you our bitter thanks. But you have dared to break our bond and gulled our servants, wronged and lied and thwarted us. I wed with thee, not through all the gold that veins the world. I trample on your offers and on you. Be gone. We will not look upon you more. The daughters of the plough eject the prince and Florian from the castle. At the end of this canto, Lilius sings a bitter song. Thy voice is heard through rolling drums. As mentioned before, following Canto 4, the poem becomes more serious, and perhaps for this reason, Gilbert's adaptation strays from the poem. Most of the action in the play The Princess and the opera Princess Ida encompasses the first 4 cantos and is easily traceable to the plot of the poem. The prince and Florin return to the king's camp, and Gama is thus freed. Cyril, in the meantime, had encountered Psyche in hiding and escorted her to the camp as well, where she has plunged into abject despair, constantly weeping and refusing food. It turns out that she has a daughter, Aglaia, a toddler, who is now left behind to Ida's mercies. She is fearful of how Ida will treat her in the light of Psyche's betrayal. The king announces his intention to now go to war with Gama's kingdom if Ida will not yield herself up. The prince is against this and wants Ida to yield only out of love, not intimidation. Gama and the prince ask her brother Arak to intercede. In the words of Gama, Arak's word is thrice as ours with Ida. Gama mentions that while he was hostage, the king's treatment of him was most courteous. Arak, described as the genial giant, says he could never understand Ida's ideas, but what know I of these things? Right or wrong, I care not. This is all. I stand upon her side. The prince suggests a 3-on-3 trial by combat between him, Cyril, and Florian, and Ida's 3 brothers. Arak, however, prefers 50 knights per side and convinces Ida to abide by the result. She is so sure of her brother's superior martial skills that she agrees with one stipulation. Take not his, the prince's, life. He risked it for my own. She will also retain Psyche's daughter. Our chiefest comfort is the little child of one unworthy mother. She shall not have her back. The child shall grow to prize the authentic mother of her mind. Arak's forces win the tourney, and Arak knocks the prince senseless. This leads to Canto 6. The prince lies comatose on the battlefield, and the king believes him dead. Ida, having watched the combat from her battlements, sings a long song with Psyche's child in her arms. Our enemies have fallen, have fallen. She leads the maidens out of the palace to nurse the injured, and passes by the king, who is grieving over the prince's seemingly lifeless body. She stops to examine and discovers that he is not dead, and orders him to be carried into her palace to be tended there by her ladies. She then encounters Psyche, who pleads to have her daughter returned. She is joined in this request by Cyril, who has also been wounded. Ida eventually relents and hands the child to Cyril, who then passes her on to Psyche. Psyche furthermore asks for Ida's forgiveness, saying, "We two were friends. I shall go to mine own land forever. I scarce am fit for your great plans. Yet speak to me, say one swift word, and let me part forgiven." Arak, Gama, and even the king encourage Ida to forgive, and finally convince her. Ida says to Psyche, "We embrace you yet once more with all forgiveness, all oblivion, and trust, not love you less." Ida declares that she will disband the school and opens the gates to all the wounded over Blanche's objections. She herself proposes to nurse the king back to health. Canto 7. The college is converted to a hospital. Blanche has departed, but her daughter Melissa remains behind to tend the wounded Florian. Cyril and Psyche are betrothed. The prince drifts in and out of consciousness and often in his delirium calls out Ida's name. Ida's depressed. She ponders on the fate of her philosophy in terms best expressed in I Built Upon a Rock, sung here by soprano Julie Rumbold. Don't be distracted by the orchestra wearing horns. We did that for the third act. Ida still believes in equal rights with men, but confesses that she may have been too much under Blanche's influence while young and inexperienced in the ways of the world. The prince gradually improves and is able to engage Ida in philosophic discussion. He encourages her to continue to strive to fulfill her dreams, declaring, "Henceforth thou hast a helper, me, that know the women's cause as men's. They rise or sink together. For woman is not undeveloped man, but diverse. Could we make her as the man, sweet love were slain. His dearest bond is this, not like to like, but like in difference. Yet in the long years, liker must they grow. The man be more of woman, she of man. Self-reverent each and reverencing each, distinct in individualities, but like each other even as those who love." Ida is convinced by his arguments and is ready to fulfill her marriage contract on the basis of the prince's beliefs, which she finds she now shares. The prince declares, "We will walk this world, yoked in all exercise of noble end. Indeed, I love thee. My hopes and thine are one. Accomplish thou my manhood and thyself. Lay thy sweet hand in mine and trust to me." So ends the main body of the poem. There is, however, a conclusion. The party breaks up as both the girls and the young men ponder on the lessons learned in their tale. Some are enthusiastic, while others are skeptical. One of the male attendees speaks up, "I wish she had not yielded," and addresses the narrator, "What if you dressed it up poetically?" With the others urging, the narrator gives his assent. Enter William Gilbert. And the play, The Princess, a whimsical allegory in 5 acts, being a respectful perversion of Mr. Tennyson's poem. As mentioned previously, 1869 was the year that the first women's university, Girton College, Cambridge, was established. That very year, Gilbert authored his play, The Princess, which opened in London in January 1870, where it ran until the following April, then went on tour for a short while. Gilbert thought highly enough of it to include it as one of the 5 original plays in his collection published in 1876 out of a total of over 30 possibilities. On the whole, Gilbert's treatment of the character of Ida and her ideas is less sympathetic, at times almost mocking, and the prince is much more chauvinistic than in Tennyson's poem. Surprisingly, though, he is more sympathetic to the character of Lady Blanche, who in Tennyson poems is completely uncompromising. Names are now given for Hildebrand, Hilarion, Guron, Cynthius, and the parts of Saccharissa, Ada, Sylvia, and Chloe are introduced. There are also additional characters of Atho, Hildebrand's chamberlain, Gobbo, a porter, and first and second officers who will be dropped in the opera Princess Ida. What will be a great variance is that the parts of Hilarion, Cyril, and Florian, as well as Gama's 3 sons, will all be played by women, which will, in the former case, allow the spectacle of women playing men who then disguise themselves as women. The play also includes many musical sequences where Gilbert has set lyrics to some popular and widely known tunes of the day, mainly from French operettas. In this section, I'm going to play some of the tunes that Gilbert set, but in their original versions, just so you can get a sense of the types of tunes he worked with. Like the Tennyson poem, the play is written in blank verse. Here's a brief synopsis of the action of The Princess. Scene 1, pavilion in Hildebrand's palace, opening chorus set to a tune from Offenbach's 1857 Mariage aux Lanternes. The court is discovered awaiting appearance of Gama. Hildebrand and Hilarion discuss at length his wedding with Ida, in this case when they were both babies. It should be noted here that all the dialogue scenes tend to be longer in the play than in Princess Ida. Gama arrives, but without his sons, and banters with Hildebrand, Hilarion, Florian, and Cyril. The latter 3 depart to Castle Adamant to storm the citadel through gentle means. They sing a trio set to another Offenbach tune, this time from an operetta called Ching Chow Hai, composed in 1868. This leads to scene 2, the gates of Castle Adamant and the porter's lodge. Hilarion and his friends arrive and encounter the porter, Gobbo, who is the keeper of the undergraduate robes and caps. He explains that males of any breed are strictly forbidden and to enter the college grounds, and that 8 daughters of the plow provide security. The only man who ever enters is the portly Gobbo himself. Once a year, he is led through their ranks that they may see what sort of thing's a man. See here, Ida cries, see, this is what you lose in losing man. Look, girls, this is a courtly knight, a type of all that's beautiful in man. The 3 convince Gobbo to reluctantly give them academic robes to wear, which they don as they join in a quartet sung to the tune of Les Trois Cousines from Offenbach's 1850 La Pericole. Here is the tune. Gilbert's lyrics for the first measures are, if we are hailed with any query, say we are nice young ladies three. They all fit very well to the tunes that he chose. Now they encounter Lady Psyche, who explains the rules of the school to them, to which they agree, using the dialogue that Princess Ida delivers in the opera. As they depart to enter the castle, they sing a quartet set to La Langusta Atmosphérique from the 1867 operetta L'Oeil Crevé by Hervé.
La légende que je sais a 70 couplets. Pour qu'elle vous satisfasse, des autres je vous fais grâce, mais la morale à la fin doit terminer le refrain. Comme la pauvre écrevisse ne rendait jamais service, il vaut mieux renflouer les gens que de les voir vivre à vos dépens. Voilà, voilà cette histoire véridique, c'est celle de la langouste atmosphérique. La corrida sont étincelles. Trompette et basse, entonner les violonelles, reflet tambour en avant la pastorelle. La corrida, good morning, sir.
A nice, lively tune, that one. The opening lines, according to Gilbert, are, if you pass within our hall, you must learn to love us all. That leads to scene 3, the grounds of Castle Adamant. The girl students enter singing the chorus from another 1861 Offenbach opera, Pont des Soupirs, then talk among each other until Blanche arrives with the list of punishments. Ida gives her inaugural address, which is even longer than the one that is given in Princess Ida. The scene that follows is very much like the rest of Princess Ida Act 1. Blanche, however, discovers the men's true sex by having them do embroidery, which of course they do very clumsily. As the luncheon bell rings, Hilarion, Florian, Cyril, and Melissa sing a quartet set to the Angelus from Mariage aux Lanternes, which we had a number from earlier. While Cyril's tavern song is set to the laughing song from Manon Lescaut, not the one by Rossini, but the one by Auber. Please notice the hilarious young girl to the right of the soloist who seems to imbibe too much wine during the solo. The lyrics that Gilbert set to that start with, a young and earnest reader, once with a special pleader, was reading for the bar, ha, 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 ha. So, and more of the same continues on. Anyway, Hilarion rescues Ida, as in the poem and in the opera. Hildebrand's army shows up outside the walls, and Ida expels Hilarion and his friends and calls upon the ladies to arm themselves, ending in a chorus based on another tune from Ching Chao Hai. Gama is being held hostage. Aric, Gurin, and Cynthius arrive. This is their first appearance in the play, and demand Gama's release. It turns out that Hildebrand will not storm the castle by force of arms, but with love songs, odes, and idle fripperies, such as women cannot long withstand. Among the units that will assault the castle are the light guitars, the king's own baritones, and the first light tenors. The director of poets will post 500 valentines. 500 dressing tables with mirrors and makeup will be set in the sight of the walls, as well as 500 robes of French design. He goes on to add, if all this fails, I have a deadlier scheme. 500 waltzing bachelors shall twirl and twist before their dazzled eyes, thrumming soft music on a light guitar. He further expands on his strategy, in the famous tune from Barbara of Seville's Largo Affectorum.
Fortunatissimo per verità, bravo. Fortunatissimo per verità, fortunatissimo per verità. Pronto per tutto, la notte e il giorno, sempre intorno di giusta. Mil cucani e per un barbiere, vita più nobile non usina. Resti ripetti, la siete forti al mio comando, tutto qui sta. Resti ripetti, la siete forti al mio comando, tutto qui sta. E la risorsa...
The opening lines, according to Gilbert, go, like a teetotum with a guitar, just so, la 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 la. Bachelor spin at them with a guitar, just so, la 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 la. So, Hilarion, Cyril, and Florian enter, still dressed in their women's clothes, to the hilarity of all. They decide on the 3-on-3 trial by combat the next day, and the scene ends with all singing to the tune of the folk song Entre Paris et Lyon. Scene 5, the inner gate of Castle Adamant. Action and dialogues correspond closely with those in Act 2 of Princess Ida. However, not only Ida, but Psyche and Melissa also ask the brothers to spare their suitors, thus providing an excuse for the brothers to allow themselves to be overcome by Hilarion, Florian, and Cyril. There is no mention of them removing their armor. After the fight, the dialogue between Hilarion and Ida is identical to that in Princess Ida. As Hilarion points out to her the results that would arise from her pursuing her philosophies to the limit, it all ends in a reprise of the chorus from Pont de Super. Another 14 years passed until Gilbert prevailed on Arthur Sullivan to set an altered version of his poem to original music set to lyrics that Gilbert devised. In my opinion, this led to one of Sullivan's most beautiful scores, containing the celebrated String of Pearls in Act 1. In this version, we have the three hulking brothers arriving during the prologue with Gama and being taken hostage along with him. Also, only here do we find them removing their armor for the big showdown in Act 2, with Aric singing an aria that sounds like it comes straight from Handel. I must confess, though I've seen many versions of this number, but the most bizarre has to be this one, performed by Carolyn Price in the review Savoy Ghosts at the 2013 Buxton Gilbert and Sullivan Festival. Maybe if it was still portrayed with the women as the three brothers, it might look something like this.
This helmet, I suppose, was meant to ward off blows. It's very, very hot, and it weighs a lot. As many a guardsman knows, as many a guardsman knows, as many a guardsman knows, as many a guardsman knows. So off that helmet goes. Tight-fitting, queer-ass. Sorry. Is such a useless mess. It's made of steel. Ooh. And it weighs a deal. This tight-fitting queer-ass is just a useless mess. A man must be an ass to fight in a cuirass. So off goes that cuirass. These things I treat the same. I quite forget their name. But in a fight, they're much too tight. They're like a lobster shell. They're like a lobster shell. These things I treat the same. I quite forget their name. They turn one's legs to cribbage pegs. Their aids I thus disclaim, their aids I thus disclaim. Though I forget their name, though I forget their name. Wait, I hate working with amateurs. Enjoy this, huh? They're big boots. They're eight, I thus disclaim.
I'm sure you all noticed that she messed up one set of lyrics there, but what can you do? There is one other complication that must be mentioned before we conclude, and that is there was an American libretto published, which was a pre-opening version containing significant differences in both song and dialogue from the first edition English libretto, which reflects the Gilbert and Sullivan opera as performed. Noticeable differences are the quintet, "If We Should Discharge Our Duties Here," which would be replaced by "The Woman of the Wisest Wit." Also altered are the lyrics to Ida's solo, "I Built Upon a Rock," which we heard earlier, and the previously mentioned solo by Arak. In the case of the Arak song, it is so different that the lyrics do not at all match the melody that Sullivan eventually used. I do not know if there was ever a melody written to match the lyrics that appear in the American libretto. There's also a second verse to the chorus sung during the fight scene, which I actually kind of like and used in my most recent production, although my director also expunged any reference to Hungary or Hungarians. That said, I would like to end on a high note. I don't think there is any passage in all of Gilbert and Sullivan that is more stirring than the finale of Act One of Princess Ida, especially when performed with the original orchestration and a first-rate soprano. In this case, once again, Julie Rumbold.
Release Hilarion then, and be his bride, or you'll incur the guilt of fratricide.
Together was such a foolish line, so creep away with him all the behind. Let his friends from it all, his head to all. He got time before it comes up his way.
Well, I hope you found this presentation both enjoyable and informative. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. And I thank you for your attention.
I would invite people to unmute and start video, and we can ask questions of John.
Yes.
John,
David, yes.
the one character that doesn't seem to have much to do with the show before it gets to the opera is King Gama.
Yeah, he did. As a matter of fact, you know, he's rather friendly and very much sympathetic with Hilarion in the poem, and in the play, it's pretty much the same as in Princess Ida opera. You know, basically appears at the beginning and the end, and not in the middle. But the thing I was surprised at is that no, he's in no way a villain or misshapen or anything at all in the poem at all. You know, that's just purely a creation of Gilbert, that characterization.
Thank you.
Yep. I guess I must have stumped everybody.
Well, John, I didn't have any questions, and I love Princess Ida. And great job as usual.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I didn't know half of what you talked about tonight, but it's really interesting.
No. Well, I read through the poem a couple of times, and actually it has to be on the second or third reading that you find where the real meat of it is, because there's so much extraneous stuff in it that to get down to what's actually happened, what's
Yeah.
important. And I do like their conversation between Ida and Hilarion at the end. I mean, makes much more sense, her transformation, than
Yeah.
it does in either the play or the opera, where all of a sudden, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and the lines that she gives in the end of Ida and the play are actually lines that he says in the poem.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Very interesting.
Yep.
I have
Really
a
appreciate-
question.
Yes. Peter. Yes.
Yes, I wondered. I know in this copy of the score that I've got, there is a song called what is it? A Darwinian Man, and I wondered what connection there is between this and the great battle over evolution in the latter part of the 19th century, and all of that. I'm sure there's a considerable understory to it, but I'll throw that out.
Yeah, well, of course, this was at the time basically that Darwin was coming much to the fore, and so this was, I think, Gilbert's his commentary on what he thought about the theory, that man was descended from other species. So it was a very current topic at that time.
Appreciate your giving us a summary of the plot of Tennyson's poem, because I attended a reading of it as part of the Three Princesses project in Philadelphia decades ago, but it was given in August in an unair-conditioned building.
Yeah, Jackie and I were both there. We were both there. We remember it well.
That was
We may
really a
have been the
nasty
only people in
situation.
the room that stayed away.
It was a hot day.
It was like 100 degrees in there.
Yeah, it was bad. And then it ran on so long that the cast couldn't eat lunch before they did the princess. They couldn't eat dinner before they did Princess Ida. I recall some people describing it as child abuse.
For those that don't know, this was a project at Oberlin College that they called it the Three Princesses Project, and it was a reading of the poem, and then a staging of the Respectful Perversion, and then a full production of Ida. And as it says in 1776, it's hot as hell in Philadelphia in the summer. And one of my clearest memories was seeing the perversion with somebody that I knew a little bit from Savoynet, who was in from England and wearing leather trousers. And
Oh.
I think he had to have lost 10 pounds that day because, yeah, it was warm.
I see
But it was,
somebody
but it
else
was
in
a
the
very
waiting room there.
interesting project.
Any other
How much
questions?
did they pay
Yep.
you to attend that?
What's that?
How much did they pay you to attend that?
Now, as I recall,
Pay them.
we paid to attend.
I think
That
they
was the
did,
perversion.
I think they brought the festival to was it Philadelphia both times? I only got down there once.
I think it
It
was
Philadelphia both times and San
Mhm.
Francisco one of those times.
Mm.
I also remember there was a meeting in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
There were two festivals in Gettysburg.
Yeah. Remember the governor came once. The governor of Pennsylvania came to one of the Gettysburg ones.
Hmm.
I remember that. Yep.
Must have been the one I skipped.
That's where I gave my talk on humor in Sullivan's humor in the music.
I've always wanted to design a production of Ida, design the costumes and possibly the set. Ida was the very first Gilbert and Sullivan that I worked on with Valley Light Opera. And I just remember it looking to me like Dr. Seuss. It was just, it was, fairy tale medieval a la kooky and crazy, and it was very fun.
No.
So, well, I am going to turn off the recording, and if we want to chit chat among ourselves, that would be lovely. And then we can adjourn. So there we go. Oops, wrong button.
Yep.